Hey, hockey fans, welcome to the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Retta. You know, I've spent over 4 decades working in the game of hockey, fortunate enough to meet some of the legends of the game, saw them come into the league, watched them shine in the game, and now they've moved on to life after hockey. The 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast gives us a chance to catch up, tell some great stories, relive some great memories, and hear what they're up to today. Today's legend, a 5-time Stanley Cup champion, the Habs' first overall pick in the 1969 NHL Draft. 11 seasons with Montreal, 4 more with the Quebec Nordiques while they were at the WHA. Habs general manager from 1995 to 2000. He continues to serve as an ambassador for the Montreal Canadiens to this day. A true Quebec hockey legend. Pleased to welcome to the show, Mr. Rejean Houle. Rejean, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to see you.
Merci. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be able to talk to you today. Good.
So what are you doing now? You're working still as an ambassador for the organization. What kind of stuff are you doing on a day-to-day basis?
No, that's pretty much it. I go to the office in the morning and just make sure that we have all the communication with our alumni. We've been having a lot of alumni who live around Montreal, but also pretty much everywhere in North America. So when they need something, they come to the game. We have a Salon des Anciens, they call it. So it's an alumni room where we meet all guys from I would say, from all the times that Montreal Canadiens been around. More than 100 years now, you know that.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I feel good working within the organization, taking care of the alumni people. And we have a foundation also. And the foundation for us is very important. We raise money for kids. So we're pretty happy with that.
It's interesting, Rejean, when you talk about the Montreal Canadiens alumni, because I'm of the age where I grew up watching some of the legends of the game. And Mr. Beliveau, Jean Beliveau, was my hero as a young man growing up.
He was mine too. Yes.
That's my point. You're a young guy growing up in the small town of Rouyn-Noranda. The Montreal Canadiens select you first overall, and now you walk into the dressing room, and there's Le Gros Bill, Jean Beliveau. It gives me just chills saying it. What was it like for you as a young kid to walk into that room?
I feel the same way too. I had the privilege when I was drafted in 1969, and Big Jean was still playing. And in 1971, we won the cup, and that was the last year of Jean Beliveau. So he was our captain, and we won the cup that year also before he retired. That was great. My timing was unbelievable.
Hockey was easy for you at that point, eh? You step in as a young boy and you win the cup.
Yeah, exactly. We won the Memorial Cup in 1969, and 2 years after, I won the Stanley Cup in 1971, and 2 years after, I won another Stanley Cup in 1973. So things were going pretty well with all those good years that I had. Henry Richard was my captain for the second Stanley Cup.
I know, which is amazing to me. Like we throw out these names, like Frank Mahovlich, Jean Ferguson, Yvan Cournoyer, Henri Richard. Yes. How long did it take, Rejean, before you started to feel like, okay, I'm not just a young guy working my way in here, but I'm part of this team? Like, how long did you feel that way?
Yeah, well, it took maybe 2 or 3 years after winning the second Stanley Cup. I felt that I was doing a bit more. I had more ice time, and I could do a bit more. And I was very close to Henri Richard. Jean was gone, but Henri took over as a captain and we were winning the Stanley Cup in '73 before he retired himself. So it seems like from one hand to the other, I could find a member of Hall of Fame. Do you know something? In 1 year, we had 10 guys who are member of Hall of Fame on the same team.
Which is
10
amazing.
Guys. We had Yvan Cournoyer, Henri Richard, Frank Mahovlich. We had Big Tree, Savard, Robinson, Lapointe, Ken Dryden in net, and on and on and on. So we had 10 guys who are member of Hall of Fame on the same team. Unbelievable.
And you know what? And Rejean, I'm happy to say that most of the guys you just listed, we've had on this show, which is fantastic. It's been a great opportunity to reminisce. You mentioned Ken Dryden. I want to follow up on him because he came in with you at the same time. So here's this kid who was playing at Cornell. Of course, we all know that he went on to be a lawyer, very, very smart man. He only played 6 regular season games after leaving Cornell, and then he stepped in. What was it like to see this young kid step into that situation?
Well, first we knew that he was different. Like goalies, pretty much they're all different a bit.
Yes, that's true.
So he was more as an intellectual, and he was very quiet. Yeah, in the bus or in the plane, he was always reading something about, I guess, lawyers stuff and all that stuff. So it took a little while to get closer to him. But I can tell you that when he came in, stopping all the puck that he did against Boston Bruins at the time, who were stronger than us, really makes a big difference for us. I'm telling you, he was a hell of a goalie. He was everywhere. Was tough, like he knew where the play was going, so he could stand himself the right way to stop the puck. And he was a big guy too. So having Kenny with us makes a big difference, and that was one of the reasons why we won the cup that year.
Yeah, yes, a true legend in and of himself. It's interesting, and we should point out this. And one of the things that always breaks my heart about this is, you guys, all these legends that we mentioned, you guys played at a time where, my God, if you were playing in an era now, the kind of money that you could have recouped would have been insane. There just wasn't that kind of money in the National Hockey League that year. And after you won your second Stanley Cup, the World Hockey Association, the WHA, was in the province of Quebec, and you had the Quebec Nordiques there, which wasn't far from your home. Yeah. And there was an opportunity to make a little bit more cash. Tell me how you made that decision to leave an organization, the Montreal Canadiens, the most storied franchise in NHL history, after winning 2 Stanley Cups, to say, you know what, I got to take care of my family.
Exactly. You got it right. I'm telling you, in a way, I did not want to leave, but money was there. It was not big money like today, but even then at the time, being able to go from Montreal to Quebec was not too far change for us. And being able to buy my first house, because I just got married in 1971. And so being able to get $100,000 right in front.
Which was double what you were making with Montreal.
Yeah, exactly. That was a double. Exactly. So for me, I had to go. I had to go for to secure my family at the time. And 2 or 3 years after, Sam Pollock came and talked to my agent, and he said, if Rejean wants to come back, he's welcome to come back to Montreal. So I talked to the wife, and we decided to go back to Montreal. We had 3 kids at the time, and we had to make sure that the family grew the proper way. And here we go. We came back, and we won another 4 Stanley Cup in a row. I won 3 of those 4, because the one in 78 that we beat Philly in 1976, I was not there. I was still in Quebec.
Yeah. What was it like to try to explain that to your friends when they said, Rejean, you're leaving the Montreal Canadiens to play for the Nordiques? Because there were some rivalries there.
Oh yes, that's for sure. But at the beginning, they were not in the same league, so it was different. They were trying to build, because of Bobby Hull, who makes a big difference. They finally get the league going. So that was not the same kind of approach when we play against. We start to play against the Quebec Nordiques in 1979, if my memory is good.
Yep.
And so that was different ways, I would say, to look at it. But for me, being able to come back to Montreal was the decision that I took. And I think, really, not I think, I'm sure I took the right decision for my career. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like at that point as a young man, having won a couple of Stanley Cups at that point, having played with the Quebec Nordiques, who grew up in a small town of Rouyn-Noranda, to be walking the streets of Montreal? Like, I could imagine that you couldn't have gone anywhere without people pulling you aside and grabbing you and want to ask you a question and stuff.
Yeah, people were very nice. They were close to their team, like they are today. Still today, they're very close to their team. We're lucky. We have great fans here in Montreal.
Yeah.
and you could see that year after year, even when some of the years are tougher than others. We have young family, we have young people wearing our sweater, our hat, and it's
Yeah.
we're still pretty close to our partisan fans in English,
Yeah.
our fans. This is a good way to have a living in Montreal. Having people coming and see you and talk about hockey and all that, we all enjoy it.
Yeah, no kidding. In conversation with five-time Stanley Cup champion Rejean Houle. So, as you mentioned, you had the two cups. You go to the WHA and play it for the Nordiques. You come back and you win a cup in 78, 79, sorry, 77, 78, 79.
Yeah.
And Scotty Bowman was running the bench at the
Yeah.
legendary. You talk about legendary players, the Montreal Canadiens, from a coaching standpoint, one of the all-time greats, legend,
For sure.
amazing. What was it like to play for him?
Scotty, where he was, I think he was the best in the league. Is that when he was getting behind the bench and the team and the game was starting, he knew exactly what to do and where to go with his player, depending of the team we play against. He was he was looking at other teams. He was studying other teams before coming to meet us in our room. He was just making sure that he knew everything about all the players from the other team and the way they were playing in their I would say situation, depending the situation, power play or a short-handed goal and all that. He was thinking hockey all the time. So when the game was coming, he was ready, and we had to be ready ourselves too. I can tell you that. So if not, you were at the end of the bench and goodbye, buddy.
That was Scotty. He was
Yeah.
he was your best friend if you were doing the right thing. I remember
Yeah.
being on the ice when guys won the Stanley Cup with Scotty Bowman, and I'm trying to get players to say nice things about Scotty, and they say he's a great coach, and that's where they stop because there was always tension.
Well, at that time, communication was not that great,
Yeah, not
So
like today.
communication was very short, and you could. It was tough to engage a long conversation with Scotty. Uh, he was not like he didn't do that for a bad reason or something like that. It was not just like his temper was that way.
Yeah.
And he was coming to see you. When he was coming to see you, better be ready to take what he had to tell you. I can tell you that, though.
You must have some great memories. I mean, it's amazing because we talk about the fact that you won 5 Stanley Cups, which, as you say those words, it's crazy, especially for guys in the modern era right now, where it's so hard to imagine teams having dynasties. I mean, we've seen the Blackhawks do it, the Red Wings more recently
Yeah.
as well, but it's so much more rare than it was during the times of the big Montreal Canadiens runs. What were some moments that stand out in your mind during that stretch for you?
Which was a moment. I have to say that the first Stanley Cup, being with Jean Béliveau and Henri Richard and Yvan Cournoyer and Serge Savard and all those guys there. I was only 20 years old. I was just coming in, and being able to live that special moment for me was, I guess, the best thing that happened to me in my career, and where I felt that I finally made it and played with a team like Montreal Canadiens.
What was it like to share those experiences with your family? It's not like when you played, it's not like we had the time now where you can bring your families onto the ice and stuff like that. It was different back then, but ultimately,
that was something. You're right. That was too bad at the time that we could not come to the rink with our kids, and we could not get on the ice with the kid except once a year at Christmas time.
Mhm.
So the way that it is today, it's a different way. They can come with their family. They got things going differently. They mostly have a room and they can go and skate on the ice with their dad, and so it's the approach is different for sure. But that's time. No time being gone, past is past. Today is different.
What was it like though when you actually had the chance when you finished your celebration with your teammates and the alcohol wore away a little bit, and you got a chance to share that moment with your family? What were some of the moments that you got to share with your family that you can still remember now after all these years?
Well, I've got a picture of the kids with the Stanley Cup. They're about as high as the Stanley Cup, pretty much. So it's a very nice souvenir, and being able to have them on the ice with the Père Noël. So I would say Père Noël in English. That's
It's Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I should practice my English a bit more.
No, no, no. That's you're doing great.
So with Santa Claus and the kids and the family and go on the ice at Christmas time. And the Molson family, they were very close to us.
Yeah.
Arthur Molson, the senator, was there, and Mr. Eric Molson also. And now Jeff Molson took over. So it's Molson family's been around a long time, and they're very good to us. Very good.
You had a great run with the Molson organization after your retirement. You retired in 1983 as, and I keep saying this, as a 5-time Stanley Cup champion. And then you worked with the Molson organization for a while, and then you returned to join the Montreal Canadiens. They got off to a rough start in the 1995 season. Serge Savard, legend of the game, was the general manager, and Jacques Demers, the head coach, and they were both ousted, and you were brought in and with Mario Tremblay. What was that like to come back into the organization after all those years?
You know, I felt that after I retired in 1983, most of the time when I was working with Molson, I was working for Molson, but I had like the privilege to be also close to the team at the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Mr. Corey uh, decided to have an alumni room
Ronald
and
Corey,
an
Ronald
association
Corey,
and
the
all that.
president of
So
the Habs.
yeah, so I was just like getting in from Montreal Canadiens to Molson, from Molson to Montreal Canadiens. So it was about in the same, I would say, same area, or you know, I was around the team all the time. So that was not for me. That was like just a continuities of my career, really.
But such a responsibility, Rejean, to step in there now to be the general manager of one of the most storied franchises in NHL history. What was that like to feel to take on that burden?
That was something special, really. You know, it took me a little while to get back on track, and even then, I would say that I would have need more experience to be able to to do that job, because it's a big job. I'm telling you, and it was at the time in 1995. We had the change at the NHL. Also, a lot of changes were going at the NHL level also. So everybody was involved. We had a strike, I think, if I remember well.
You had Gary Bettman taking over as commissioner in '93. The big lockout, the strike,
exactly,
rules,
all
a
that
lot
stuff.
happened.
So yeah, a lot of things happened with not experience that I have. I did not have that much experience, so that was a tough time. But there's nothing easy in life, so I had to go through that, and I did.
You got handed one of the most difficult hands of anybody's ever been handed before. I remember this real clearly. It's in December of 1995. I think at that point you were maybe 6 weeks into the job, and it was a rough start for the team. That's why there was the change, and you're now kind of middle of the pack of the team, a 500 hockey team, and in comes Scotty Bowman, leading your former Habs coach, leading the Red Wings, which were a freaking powerhouse. What was that like, having Scotty Bowman, your old coach, in the building on that night?
Oh, that night was a hell of a night. That was a Patrick Roy night also there, where we had problems within our own team, you know. And Scotty came in, and I'm telling you that Detroit team was ready to play against us, and they were just all after us. We were not in the game. They were leading everywhere. Yeah.
And I remember that night very clearly. I mean, Patrick was clearly not on his game. Patrick Roy we're talking about. And the Montreal Canadiens fans are phenomenal. They're special, but they also have huge expectations. And when Patrick started a couple of soft goals, and he knew he was having an off night, he was doing the sarcastic waved the salute to the fans. And then he started looking at the bench, who at that point, Mario Tremblay was behind the bench. He'd given up 4, 5, 6 goals. And Patrick, you could tell. What was your impression of, was Patrick basically saying, get me out of here to Mario Tremblay at that point?
I don't know if he was.
But do you think that's what he was feeling? Get out of the net?
But I guess the way things happened, he felt that he should be out of there, and the coach decided that he should be just stayed in the net. So that was the situation, and that it was tough situation for both guys at the time.
Yeah, and it became very difficult. And I think what made it even more difficult for hockey fans who have been around for a long time, they know, in a number of cities, this is not just true in Montreal, but oftentimes the Habs ownership and the management team, and for that particular night, Ronald Corey was sitting right behind the Habs bench. And finally, when Patrick came out after 9 goals, he went straight to Ronald Corey and said, "That's it. I played my final game with the Montreal Canadiens." What was it like when Ronald Corey had to share that with you to say, "This is what Patrick has just said to me"? How did that play out afterwards?
You know something? I don't remember exactly. I was like how could I say that in English? There was so much going on the same night that there's some of the point that happened that I don't even remember right now.
Yeah. So Bob Sauvé, who was the agent at that point for Patrick, you met with him and Patrick. Was it the next day, or how did that play out?
That was the next day. Yeah, I remember that was the next day. Yeah.
What was that conversation like with you? And was that situation taken out of your hands?
There's some. I don't know exactly how I would say that, but that was like we decided to have a conversation, and that conversation would stay with us, and it's been like that all the way until today. Yeah. And I feel that it's better to leave it that way.
Fair enough. That was a difficult time. And of course, Patrick Waugh at that point ended up getting dealt just 4 days later, which is a tough spot to put your young general manager in at that point. But you weathered the storm, and you were there for another 5 years.
Yeah.
You talk about your children. One of your children, Jean-François, went on to play some hockey. He actually got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens in the 4th round, spent most of his career in the minors, but he's back in the organization now.
Yeah, he's back. He's been coaching everywhere in the United States and Clarkson University for a while. Then he coached in the junior league in Quebec also. And he's been working a lot on his coaching way of doing things. And he's pretty good at it. Things are going pretty well with that.
Is Jean-François coaching the Laval Rocket right now as the head coach?
Yeah, he is. He is the head coach of the Laval Rocket. Yeah, he is.
Which is the minor league affiliate for the Montreal Canadiens organization. What's it mean to you to have I don't want to say your little boy, because he's not a little boy anymore, but your son following up now through the ranks, potentially, he's got to be a candidate for the head coaching job in Montreal if and when it becomes available.
Yeah, well, I don't know how the future is going to be, but he's happy to work there now in Laval. We have a nice crowd there. It's going to the game, new building, all facilities for the players and their families, and he's happy with that. And he tries to get the players ready for the big team. So that's pretty good. It's a good challenge for him.
Are there times, Rejean, we're in conversation with 5-time Stanley Cup champion Rejean Houle, are there times where you kind of pinch yourself and say, I can't believe all the amazing things that have happened through my time with this organization?
Yeah, you can say so. Yeah, there's so many things happen over the years. That's true. But when you are with a good organization, you can live well and make sure that things are going fine from what you have to do. So, and I had that privilege at Molson with the Molson family, and also Montreal Canadian hockey team that I dreamed to play for, that I did. Very, very good organization. So when you have that, that's a very good start to be happy and to have a good life. And this is exactly what happened to me. Thanks
How
God.
do you explain the tremendous dynamic history, the tradition that the Montreal can, like all other organizations, every organization is trying to do this. I remember when the Forum was closing and you were moving to the new building, and
Yeah.
when all the former captains were there and the passing of the torch, that entire ceremony.
Yeah.
Over the years, there's new people running the organization, and yet that seems to stay consistent. That out of all those ceremonies, this is the organization that knows how to handle it best. How do you explain that?
I don't know. I guess from one person to another within the organization, the value is very important to have a good way of life, a good thinking, doing things properly with the community, with all what is around the team also. And I think we did keep that from one generation to another, and we tried to transfer it to the younger guys who are in the team right now. And playing with Montreal Canadiens, I feel it's a privilege. It's a very good organization. If you want to go ahead and do it, good for you. And I felt very comfortable over the years that our organization helping others foundation to raise money for the right situation, kids especially. When you see young kids going on the ice, you feel that the new generation is there and they're proud to be wearing our sweater. So all that together means that other people who are coming in, they get within that situation.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really appreciate all your time this morning, Rejean. It's been phenomenal
Good.
catching up with you, and you look fantastic. You look like you're in great health, which is great. I want to play a little something before we say goodbye. We call it 5 Fast Facts. I'm going to ask you 5 quick, fast questions, and you give me the answers. Okay, you ready?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, who was the best teammate that you ever played with?
There's too many of them teammates that I played with. They were. I would say it in reverse. Which one who did not accomplish what they had to, not being with us. So no, I cannot tell one guy. That wouldn't be fair. That wouldn't be fair. There's too many
Okay,
of
who was
those.
the best coach you ever played with? I think I know the answer to this one.
Scotty Bowman,
Yeah.
for sure, was the best coach of all the players who played for him.
Who did you hate playing against the most?
Philly, especially when they had that intimidation time there in 75, 76, 76, 77, those years. I thought that they were tried to, how do we say that in English?
Intimidate.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What was your favorite NHL city to play in other than Montreal?
The original 6 teams, I would say most of them, yeah. Chicago was some ice surface were different. You know,
Yeah.
some had the smaller corners, some was not as long as others. So Boston was unbelievable when we used to go to Boston. Boston Maple Leaf also in Toronto those years that was unbelievable. No, the original 6 teams, I would say that was the fun to play against.
If you hadn't played, you were a little boy from a small town in Quebec. If you hadn't played in the NHL, what do you think you would have done as a career?
I never thought about doing nothing else than being a hockey player at the time. Coming from my small town there, my father was a miner, and I wanted to get out of my hometown, not because I didn't like it. I liked the town itself, but to be able to prosper, to get better, to go higher, to
To
do better
prosper,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, so I had the chance to have a guy like Jacques Laperrière, Gilles Laperrière,
Mhm.
and Claude Ruel, who came and get me in my hometown. So that was a turning point of my life.
And it worked out phenomenally well. Turned out to a spectacular career with 5 Stanley Cups. Rejean, it has been so great talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so glad you're still with the organization as an ambassador. You're a tremendous ambassador to that organization. Thank you for this.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Have
Merci.
a good day.
Five-time Stanley Cup champion, former general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, Rejean Houle. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by 7-Eleven and Athletes Care. Before leaving the rink, order your favorite Slurpee, fresh 100% premium Arabica coffee, hot from the oven pizza and wings, pint of ice cream, or even a carton of milk, a dozen eggs, and a loaf of bread from the 7NOW app, and Team 7-Eleven will have your order ready for pickup 24/7. Athletes Care is proud to be celebrating their 25th year offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athletes Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 24 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and Ottawa. Hey, if you missed any parts of the show, don't worry. Visit our website at overtimepodcast.ca, where you can both listen and subscribe to future shows. 7-Eleven's Overtime Podcast can be found on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next week, I'm Gino Retta saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the 7-Eleven Overtime Podcast.